Hello everyone, welcome back to another video today in the lab. We're just going to quickly go over the simple process of forming your leading edge for your wing. The leading edge is a pretty important part, helps to maintain shape on that front end and then allow for a good attachment point of the monocoque or cover right. As you can see here on this wing, we have a 1/32 balsa sheet leading the entire leading edge of the wing. And in order to form that leading edge, as you can see, we got a 1/32 plywood sheet. It's pretty malleable already, but if I continued to press it back, the grain would split and it would not make that form. So obviously the angle of airfoils is high, and so what we do is just a simple spray with Windex across the entire part of the 1/32 balsa sheet. That gets it incredibly malleable, and then you put it into a tooling piece, let it dry, and then it'll allow you to form. So really quickly, just to go over tooling pieces, I kind of have just a variety that we've had in the lab, that we've made as demos, that teams have done for themselves. It kind of comes down to your team, how you want it to be built, if you wanted to take up a wood material, how much you want it to cost, foam, ease of manufacturing, so all that will change. But just a couple quick examples. This is a fully balsa wood piece of tooling, so they CAD'ed on AutoCAD with whatever shape the airfoil was, and then made indentation, so a female and male side that they were able to press in a piece into. This is a pretty cheap way to do it, but it does work. It's kind of falling apart, as you can see. But this was a cardboard tooling piece. It does work. Again, it's just maintaining that form and the curves. And then this is one of my favorite in the lab. It's a wood and foam piece, so male piece is foam, female piece is all wood. Makes a really, really nice form. This is another wood piece. It has interlocking mechanisms. And then just the most simple way to do it is if you have the coordinates of your airfoil, you can obviously put that onto the Excel sheet and send it to us in the foam cutter, and we'll get that cut. So this is just a quick little foam cut. So the way we're gonna do this piece and form this piece of balsa wood today, we'll just do it on this nice and simple foam piece. But again, it comes down to what your guys' preference is, what your budget is, how much you want to manufacture. But a good piece of tooling for this does make it really easy because the process is simple. It just needs a little bit of patience. And yeah, so now we'll move on to the actual building of it. So pretty simple material-wise. You'll obviously have your balsa wood, your tooling. We just have a couple clamps here, and then our spray Windex. Really quick before I get started, if you're wondering, could I use potentially a thicker balsa piece or like a 1/32 bass piece? I would not highly recommend it. 1/32 balsa is pretty light already, by far the most malleable. I've seen 1/32 bass break pretty easily, and it gets pretty hard to bend into a really sharp angle once you start using thicker balsa. But 1/32 balsa has quite a good amount of bend in it already, so that's what I would highly recommend using. So for Windex, there's not a specific way to do it. You kind of just need a liberal application of the spray bottle across the entire surface. So to get started, it just needs to get soaked all the way through. As you can tell, it's kind of already starting to twist up, but I have that across, and I'm just gonna smooth my finger on top of it to try to get it into the grain, soaked all the way through. And then I'm gonna flip it around and do the other side as well. I'm gonna do the same thing, run my hands through it. That way it's pretty much a fully soaked piece of balsa wood. And to be honest, don't let it sit for very long. It could start to dry up a little bit and not form as well. You're just gonna use the female attachment, or the female point of the tooling first. If you have a super long leading edge, I'd say this is best to do with 2 people. And you guys can both work the sides first before you push in the middle. but for this size, we should be okay. But all you're gonna do is slowly and patiently push in your tooling piece. This wood luckily went in pretty easy. Sometimes when you push in, you might hear some like cracks and think that you broke the wood. That's not necessarily true. Other times it is. If it starts to split, just pull it out. For the most part, it's gonna just keep splitting as you push it in. So if that happens, just let us know. We can cut a new 1/32 piece for you. But we'll have this sit all the way in like this, starting to take form. And then we're going to add our male piece into it just to keep it. And then we're gonna allow a couple clamps on it just to make sure that form is being held. Now ideally, if you have time, you wanna let this sit and dry by itself. Let it sit a couple hours, let it sit overnight. If you're crunched for time, you could use a heat gun to try to have it hold form. But if you're using a foam piece, do not use a heat gun. That's obviously gonna melt through the foam. But with this process, you'll just let it sit and it should take form. Okay, so we're back after a day of letting this sit. Just gonna quickly unclamp and show you guys. You don't need to wait an entire day or night, but it is nice to let it dry. As you can tell, we now have a curved piece, forms really well. So now the next step that you do, looking at a wing like this, you would glue onto your ribs. Again, this thing doesn't need to hold absolutely perfect shape. It just needs to be curved enough that once you add your CA glue, it will hold that form. But yeah, hopefully you have your indentations, small 30-second indentations at the start of your ribs, and then you're able to apply glue. Usually you'd place it on the top first and then just warp it around on the bottom. But yeah, pretty simple process. Just be patient. My last note for this video is, depending on your tooling, just be careful with how long you're going to go. You might be a little bit more prone to breaking when you form if it's a super long piece. So if you can, smaller sections are better. Something like this size is perfect. But yeah, pretty simple process. If you guys want to practice with your tooling, feel free to come into the lab and we can have a lab tech help. But yeah, should be easy. Okay, thanks guys.